Yeah, so I think that's the key message with the low levels of head blight we had in that northern region, so Dubbo above up into southern Queensland last year, is that just the crown knot fungus in a wet year remind us hasn't gone away. So we didn't get the expression of whiteheads with a softer finish from we normally see with crown knot. Instead we got low levels of Fusarium head blight. Yeah, I'm Steven Simpfendorfer with New South Wales Department of Primary Industries based at Tamworth, Cereal Pathologist. We talked today a bit about some Fusarium head blight issues we had in the northern region, so really that Dubbo above up into the southern Queensland. We had very low levels of Fusarium head blight fortunately, and what we figured out, it's actually the crown knot fungus, Fusarium pseudograminarum. So when we get a wet year, we don't get the whiteheads expressed from crown knot, which causes a basal infection, but what we do get in a wet year is the fungus produces spores on the lower nodes, and they can rain splash up into heads and give us a head infection, partial bleaching of spikelets in heads. So yeah, it wasn't a big issue for grain receivals, but it's just the crown knot fungus in a wet year remind us hasn't gone away. The inoculum's still there, and to be wary with our rotations. The other issue going forward, which is what we're doing with growers at the moment, is when you've got Fusarium infection of grain, you've got potential issues going forward with sowing that seed. So seed, if it's got a high infection level of Fusarium, when you sow it, you introduce a really severe early basal rot, and you get seedling blight, so you really reduce your establishment. So really getting growers in that region, if they saw any head blight, to send grain in so we can plate it and tell them what their infection levels are, then we can advise them on seed treatments or whether to get a clean seed source for 2017 plantings.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you really want to know what your levels are. So there's implications there. If you sow grain that's got Fusarium infection, you introduce a severe early rot in that seedling as it emerges, and you basically die from seedling blight. So you reduce your emergence, your establishment levels. So yeah, identifying what your levels are, and if you start getting, between that 1 to 5%, we'd recommend you use a seed treatment to reduce that losses and improve your emergence. Once you're between 5 to 10, we'd say start looking for a cleaner source, lower Fusarium levels, but definitely treat the seed. And once you're above 10%, you've got to just go to a new seed source. The problem with is, it'll dramatically reduce your establishment. Seed treatments will help, but they don't fully eliminate the infection. But the other thing is you undo your rotations in terms of crown knot, because the surviving plants get infected with the Fusarium and introduce a crown knot infection to paddocks. So therefore you've undone your rotations, introduced infected stubble back into paddocks that were clean. They're basically, we need about 250 grams to 500 grams, obviously below 12.5% moisture, so won't have weevil issues and the fungus won't develop any further in transit. And yeah, basically pull out your silos, send it to us at Tamworth, and then we'll surface sterilise, plate it, and tell them what their infection levels are, and so we can pick up Fusarium bipolaris, which is the common root rot fungus, and also another head disease we get called white grain disorder, caused by fungus Uterosporella. So we can pick all those three on culture. So yeah, when we get Fusarium head blight, it produces white grains, and if you get continued moisture, then the Fusarium will actually make the grains go pink. But you actually still want to know what fungus is doing it. So when it's Fusarium pseudograminarum doing it, we want to determine that it's the cause, because it produces a lot less toxin per individual grain. And it produces a less toxic form of toxin compared to when we get another species of Fusarium called Fusarium graminearum, which tends to host more on some of our summer crops, our sorghum, our maize, etc. When it causes it produces a lot more toxin per grain and a more toxic form. And also, if we can differentiate that Uterosporella, that white grain disorder, we know there's no toxins associated with it. So by determining what the actual cause of that head blight is, it helps us guide the end use of that grain that's infected. So we've done a lot of work with sardi, Alamachiate sardi, around Predictor B, which is a DNA-based soil test, and a lot of work around improving the testing protocol. So adding pieces of cereal stubble to the soil tests, we pick up the crown knot fungus a lot better. So certainly the warning with those really low levels of head blight showing us that the crown knot fungus was still around in 2016 is really to be aware of your inoculum levels this year. So just because we didn't get expression of whiteheads from crown knot last year doesn't mean that the inoculum's not there and the fungus has gone away. So particularly durum, which is really susceptible to crown knot, if growers are going to target that, they really want to know what their inoculum levels are, and Predictor B, which is offered in the north through Crown Analytical Services at Moree, is a really good way of getting a measure of what your risk is for this sowing.